Even today, when modern medicine is flourishing, disease remains one of the biggest enemies plaguing humanity. From newborn vaccination programs to lifelong chronic disease management, almost everyone is dealing with diseases. However, in every corner of the world, there is always a group of people who they have never had a cold, never received a vaccine, and yet have incredible immunity. The State University of New York Medical Center once recorded a special case. A 42-year-old man, except for a minor fall and hospitalization, had never been exposed to any medical system since birth. His blood contained extremely high activity of NK cells, natural killer cells, almost 3 times the number of normal people. In the highlands of Oaxaca, Mexico, a 100-year-old woman still farms alone, without any modern medical intervention, but has nearly perfect physical examination data. They are called people who are not affected by disease, and are a very small group of people that have received the most attention from scientists around the world in recent years. In the DNA of these extremely healthy people, there is a common segment that does not belong to humans on Earth. Scientists call it exogenous chimeric sequence. It is like a strange code that was forcibly spliced into the human genetic map. It neither belongs to the history of evolution, nor can its source be found in other species on the Earth. This hypothesis was first proposed in an unpublished internal research document from the University of Lausanne in Switzerland in 2019. When tracking the genetic profiles of 30 superimmunes, researcher Dr. Amelia Cohen found that they all had an abnormal sequence with an average length of 217 base pairs. This sequence is 87% similar to some unknown viral DNA found under the frozen soil of Siberia. What is even more shocking is that these DNA samples do not exist in most modern human individuals. So the question is, how did this gene fragment enter the human body? And why do only a very small number of people have it? A mysterious man said in an interview in The Dark, "We knew about this as early as the early 1990s, but no one dared to really trace the source, because once they did, they would touch the layer that we cannot uncover." In 1997, a leaked memo from NASA first appeared with the code name Gene X Intervention. Gene X Intervention Project. It may not be a scientific research exploration of human beings, but an intervention that occurs in a higher dimension. We will conduct an in-depth investigation. What is the true origin of this mysterious DNA? Is there really some kind of intelligent being that has participated in, or is currently, injecting genes into humans? Are those people who never get sick the selected objects, or are they the byproducts of an experiment? Some people have never been sick. Maybe it's not luck, but the beginning of a plan. In 1958, on a yellowed confidential map of the US military, a tiny atoll called U Island in the Pacific Ocean was circled in red pen with blurred words written next to it, GD Protocol Site. This is a small experimental base that has never been made public. The United States has established it in the Pacific Ocean, 600 kilometers east of the Marshall Islands, codenamed U Island. Official records show that this is a climate monitoring station, but the truth is far from that. According to CIA files declassified in 2013, the real purpose of U Island was to carry out a genetic experiment program called Genesis Delta, with the purpose of testing the impact of non-human DNA on the human immune system. The core experimental subjects of this program are not animals or volunteers, but babies. In June 1959, a transport ship belonging to the U.S. Navy, the USS Osborne, quietly sailed into U Island. On board were 27 babies less than a week old, all from orphanages, who had signed a research transfer agreement. Their code name is D-Batch. Experimental content, implanting specific gene fragments into the embryonic stage to observe whether the growth process shows abnormal immune response. But in 1961, the U Island base was suddenly terminated. All infant data was destroyed. Personnel were evacuated, and the experimental facilities were blown up and sank to the bottom of the sea. The officials said it was due to structural damage caused by a typhoon, but according to retired diver Frank Melton in an anonymous oral statement in 2021, "I saw the explosive device with my own eyes. This was not a natural accident, it was man-made erasure. Even more bizarre is that 9 of the 27 babies were later secretly tracked down in different parts of the world and grew up to be healthy adults with almost no medical history. One of them, who now lives in Queensland, Australia, has not had a cold for 5 consecutive years and has no antibody response to many known viruses. An internal memo from the Australian National Institute of Health stated, "The immune system numbered Delta 09 can not only instantly recognize foreign viruses, but also regulate its own cell repair process through unknown mechanisms, and even has a significant recovery effect on radiation damage." So where does this unnatural gene in their bodies come from? A view that has long been circulated privately by internal researchers is horrifying. It is not artificially synthesized, nor does it come from known species, but is introduced from a group of gene samples from extraterrestrial sources. This gene is named sequence E. E stands for extraterrestrial. In 2006, a mysterious sample numbered SE5537E was marked as a non-local reference in the US DNA Standard Database, and the archivist noted, "It cannot be matched with any known Earth organisms." We have opened a box that we should not touch. They are not coming to Earth for the first time, and we may just be the container. A vanished island, 27 genetically modified babies, and 9 living human miracles. This isn't science fiction. It's an erased history. At 10:16 p.m. on August 15, 1977, the SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Big Ear Radio Telescope in Ohio, captured a mysterious signal that lasted 72 seconds. The signal is extremely strong, coming from deep space in the direction of Sagittarius, and its frequency falls precisely near the hydrogen spectral line. This frequency is regarded as the most ideal standard channel for cosmic communication. Jerry Eichmann, a researcher at the time, excitedly circled the signal data on a piece of paper and wrote a word next to it. Wow. This is the wow signal. Over the past few decades, hundreds of scientists have tried to reproduce or capture this signal again, but all have failed. It seems that it only talks for that moment, and then it is silent. However, in an undisclosed NASA internal file, this wow signal has a completely different meaning. It is marked X77, Sequence Transmission Confirmation. In a coded note, it reads, Sequence E Injection Protocol Authorized. Recipient Batch, Delta B. Some researchers believe that this signal is not only an active communication from an alien civilization, it may be a kind of information-type genetic instruction transmitted electromagnetically. At the nanoscale, each signal pulse may represent the structural instructions of a base, like a remote control programming language sent at the speed of light. What is even more shocking is that the base arrangement of the sequence E gene actually found highly consistent pattern matching points in the wow signal. According to early internal logs of the National Center for Biotechnology Information, NCBI, an unpublished SE virus alignment test in 1985 wrote, "The wow signal has 27 logical overlaps with the sequence E coding region, which may be synchronous reception of exogenous templates." In other words, in 1977, this signal from the depths of the starry sky was not just a greeting or a random energy fluctuation, but a precise genetic synchronization activation instruction. Target: those Delta B individuals who have been implanted with exogenous sequences. They have long been waiting for this instruction. An anonymous researcher said in an interview at night, "Do you think the wow signal is a coincidence? No, it is their confirmation signal. We are just playing the role of the receiver." According to a 1988 SETI high-level meeting minutes, in internal terminology, this process is called gene echo, meaning gene echo. And what is echoing is an existence far older than human history. Does this mean that alien civilizations have not only been to Earth before, but have also begun to remotely operate the life expressions of some human individuals? Or, going a step further, has what we call evolution never been natural selection, but a script of some external intervention? In the winter of 1982, in the Toulon region of Siberia, Russia, a bright light broke through the night sky of Siberia. Local herders reported seeing a piece of burning metal falling from the sky, and a few hours later, a Soviet military team arrived at the scene. They named it Object S-102, a black meteorite fragment weighing about 3.4 tons, which was quickly sealed and transported to the Military Research Institute in Novosibirsk. Preliminary analysis indicates that this meteorite is not composed of common iron-nickel, but a rare protein-carbon composite structure with a highly ordered spiral arrangement. This attracted the attention of a Russian researcher codenamed Dr. Verensky, who froze the sample and sent it to a scanning electron microscope. The result made him think that the equipment was malfunctioning. After magnification 160,000 times, the lens showed a double helix structure that was extremely similar to DNA. But its base pair sequence could not be decoded at all, until 20 years later, when American scientists made a surprising discovery while matching the bases of sequence E. The genetic sequence in the Tulin meteorite sample is 92% consistent with sequence E. This means sequence E may not have appeared in the human body for the first time, but may have existed in a piece of outer space falling objects as early as the 1980s. Even more disturbing is that Dr. Verensky wrote in an internal letter to the Central Committee of the Soviet Communist Party in 1983. This is not a stone, it's an information carrier. It has no traces of evolution from nature, but is more like being manufactured to preserve an extremely stable genetic fragment. The attached memo specifically mentioned, the sample automatically repaired the damaged configuration at high temperature, showing a self-healing ability, similar to some immune-enhancing DNA models. Afterwards, the Tulin sample disappeared completely. Only an English summary copy of its research report remained, which flowed into the Genetic Information Exchange Program during the Cold War and was quietly taken over by the CIA. This genetic body is no longer called a meteorite sample, but life-seeding container, panspermia capsule, panspermia, panspermia. This is a theory marginalized by mainstream science, which holds that the seeds of life did not originate on Earth, but were spread to various planets by highly intelligent beings in the universe to observe evolution or implement some kind of grand design. If this is true, then sequence E is a kind of life information actively delivered by extraterrestrial intelligence, and we are just human containers with genes planted in them. This is very close to the description of the protein-carbon flow configuration of the Tulin sample. So the problem once again points to the same core. The gene that makes people not sick is not a miracle of evolution on Earth, but a product of implantation by alien intelligence. It may be information, a means of control, or even a screening criterion. Does the existence of sequence E mean that we are in an experiment of being observed? If so, those who are abnormally healthy may not just be lucky ones, but samples that have been selected long ago. In 1989, the Cold War was about to end, and the world's attention was focused on the Soviet-American détente and the turmoil of the Berlin Wall. During this period of global turmoil, 5 countries secretly launched an unprecedented aerial experiment in a remote desert area in the Southern Hemisphere. Codename, Project Halo. Leading countries include the United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Israel. On the surface, this is a high-altitude aerosol physical diffusion test to study the particle propagation speed under extreme climate conditions. But according to an internal plan leaked anonymously by a former Australian defense contractor in 2017, the real goal of the HALO program is far more than that. The document clearly states, Phase 3, Sequence E variant dissemination via stratospheric nanocarriers. In other words, the variant version of sequence E has been packaged into micro-nanoparticles and dispersed between the troposphere and the stratosphere through high-altitude routes, targeting the global population. Nanoscale genetic delivery is a technology that has only been gradually made public in the 21st century, but it was already quietly operating in 1989. These micro-nanocarriers are made of an absorbable organic shell that can survive for nearly 30 days at high altitudes and enter the human body through breathing, skin contact, or food chain transmission. Purpose? To test the acceptance response of sequence E to different populations. According to subsequent data tracking reports, 1 year after the project was implemented, about 0.06% of the population showed abnormal immune enhancement phenomenon. No symptoms or abnormally rapid recovery after viral infection. High tolerance to chemotherapy and radiation. Unknown protein activating factors were detected in the serum of some individuals. One participant said, "I have never had the flu, not even once since I was a child, and my fever never lasted more than 24 hours. I thought it was just a good constitution, until my physical examination report showed that I had a type of protein in my body that had no corresponding gene sequence." In an internal observation summary of the Australian Department of Defence, researchers once classified people according to genetic responsiveness, calling those with special physiques Class Z individuals. Z does not refer to the last category, but to the unknown variable, the variable after X. These people were included in a secret project in the Global Health Database for continuous tracking, and they didn't even know they had been selected. What's even more shocking is that after the HALO project, similar aerial experiments were quietly carried out around the world. Silver Fog Operation, off the coast of Alaska in 1993. Cielo Blanco, inland Spain in 1997. EchoNet Pulse Dispersal in Central Africa in 2001. After each aerial transmission, a rare but stable sequence E fragment variant was found in the local gene samples. Does this mean that we are experiencing a silent global gene reprogramming? If sequence E really has the immune-enhancing and cell-repairing functions as shown in the research, then someone is selecting a part of the human race to gradually gain a physique that will never get sick again. But what were the selection criteria? Ethnicity? Geography? Genetic affinity? Or was it recorded in some filing system decades ago? This seeding is not prepared for everyone, but for certain containers. And those who have never been sick may have already been marked by them. In 1981, the birth of a baby was recorded in a medical document that has never been made public. Birthplace, an unnamed military base in Utah, USA. Parents, their identities were set as X-level confidentiality, and the only clue was that they had both participated in the early genetic docking test of Project HALO. The baby was internally known as the Sigma individual. Sigma, not the last letter of the alphabet, meant highest variable or controllable anomaly in the cryptographic system. 72 hours before his birth, a coding protein that had never been made public was injected into his body through embryo intervention. This coding was the original version of sequence E alpha. His birth marked the first successful experiment of fully designed embryos in human history. According to the declassified meeting minutes of the U.S. Biological Defense Science and Technology Committee, BDSC, in 1995, this Sigma individual exhibited a series of extraordinary physiological manifestations during its growth. The basal metabolic rate is much lower than that of ordinary people. The regenerative liver cells fully recovered within 48 hours after an experimental injury. He was unresponsive to all vaccines, but possessed natural neutralizing antibodies against the pathogen. What is even more shocking is that a substance called I4 transcription factor was found in its body, which has the ability of self-regulating immune prediction. It can activate the corresponding defense mechanism 30 minutes before the virus invades, similar to a body prophet who can predict disease. On the mental level, his brainwave frequency band is extremely stable, and he has remarkable emotional resistance and delayed aging performance. He never went to the hospital, never had a cold, and never had a fever. At age 25, his bone density was equivalent to that of a 12-year-old child, and his DNA telomere length was 1.8 times that of the average adult. The most incredible thing is that he has not yet been publicly declared dead. In a 2009 meeting minutes, his status was recorded as active, relocated, under Protocol 9. Protocol 9 is a level known only to a very small number of members of the Defense Department, indicating that the individual is out of control and no longer accepts human monitoring intervention. In other words, this Sigma individual is probably living among us right now, but no one knows his true identity. Is his mission just to observe, or does he exist as a prototype of the future population? There is a theory that these people who never get sick are not the end, but a preview before humans are redesigned. Sigma is the sample, the Z group is the branch, and the goal is to build a new human lineage with natural immunity, rapid recovery, extended lifespan, and even the ability to accept remote consciousness access. A memo from the Israeli Neuro Research Center further mentioned, Sigma humans have neural genetic bridge points, which may serve as interfaces for consciousness transmission and gene reprogramming. In other words, Sigma bodies are not only immune to disease, but may also be the biological bridge for future consciousness uploading projects. So we must ask, are these people who never get sick really lucky? Or are they being shaped into a whole new life form? Is it just immune superiority that is written into their DNA? Or is it the code for the future human terminal? At this point, we have come to a chilling logical chain. Sequence E is not a natural evolution. Its spread is from top to bottom, organized over decades. The Z-type people are being selected. Sigma individuals may be the starting point of the human restart plan. Are we really still natural humans? Behind human technological civilization, there is a database you have never heard of. It is not connected to the internet, not public, and does not exist in any national archive system, but it is more detailed than the information of any intelligence agency. Its name is Black Library. This mysterious database first appeared in an anonymous submission by former NSA data engineer Adrian Kohler in 2011. He claimed that the library was created by the joint US-UK intelligence network since 1964, with the main purpose of tracking the biological, psychological, and social manifestations of all sequence E carriers. In simple terms, it specifically records all activities and mutations of those human samples that will not get sick. Data on every immune response to a disease, every self-repair process of a DNA fragment, every vision or language fragment that appears in a dream, every abnormal resonance between a brainwave signal and an electromagnetic wave. You think health is a natural state? In the Black Library, it is a red label marked as abnormal characteristics. In the BL Persona Index 52 Delta, leaked in 2013, a 28-year-old woman was listed as Sequence E hyperactive responder, and her health records had never reported any viral infections. But the library did not end with health, but continued to track her behavioral tendencies, social frequency, and even dream content, and archived them in subconscious interface behavior. Means that the monitoring of sequence E carriers is no longer at the physiological level, but has entered the conscious level. In an NSA engineering document leaked by Snowden, there was a mention of a monitoring system codenamed EchoGate that can track brain frequency fluctuations of sequence E individuals around the world and send a beacon mark when abnormal activity is detected. In other words, you are not only being observed, you are also participating in some kind of remote experiment. Another noteworthy part is the term that appears repeatedly in the Black Library files, return protocol. According to a 1987 internal manual, the return protocol will be activated when sequence E activity reaches 3.5 times the average human immune performance. Once activated, the individual will be classified as an encapsulated observer. These people will enter the following 3 processing paths: being recruited into top-secret scientific research institutions for consensus testing, being induced to migrate to specific areas, such as Antarctic bases, underground facilities, or uninhabited areas, being quietly archived, that is, disappearing permanently from the social system. It screens for adapters, containers, candidates, bridges that serve a distant civilization will that we do not yet understand. We have never taken control of our own health, bodies, or even genes. Subscribe to the channel and continue to follow the upcoming special episode. Sequence F, Awakening Genes, What will happen to the next generation?